Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Luria with TMC for Seniors, and we have a fun show for you today. It is our Whip It Up Cooking Club, and we're doing holiday desserts with Chef Donna Nordin. Welcome, Donna.
Hello.
So today, Donna is going to be preparing two different desserts for us. She has the pumpkin roulade along with an apple galette. Just perfect things that you can do for your Thanksgiving holiday. So, Donna, I'll let you go ahead and get started.
Okay. Well, today for Whip It Up, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to do a pumpkin roll or pumpkin roulade. As it turns out, it's a very, very, very easy process. Almost every recipe for a pumpkin roll that I've researched in the past here is the recipes are almost exactly the same. So it almost ends up tasting a little bit like a carrot cake or like pumpkin pie or whatever, because you have the same spices and you have the pumpkin. And for those who haven't seen me before, even if you have, be sure to do what I call mise en place. Measure out all your ingredients. Here I have the flour and all the spices and salt that I need for my roulade, and I put them in here and just shake them up or just stir them. If that's all you have to do, you could stir them to mix them together. And I have pumpkin measured out. I have vanilla ready, and this is the pumpkin that you want to use in most recipes. It's pure pumpkin puree, and it has no spices really in it. Don't get the pumpkin pie filling for this. You want the true pumpkin puree. And so the eggs and the sugar, cup of sugar, 3 eggs are here in the bowl. And the first thing, of course, is just to mix those two until they're a little bit fluffy and thick. So pardon my noise for a minute. And also what I want to stress along the way is that this is very easy, streamlined. It doesn't take a lot of time. My oven is at 375. I'm ready to roll. So whip this up. That's just like the name of the show here. Whip it up until it gets nice and fluffy, thickened. And once that happens, you can just stop for a second and add in your pumpkin, like so. Add in the pumpkin and the vanilla. A teaspoon of vanilla does it. And I buy my vanilla at Penzeys, for those of you who know Penzeys as a spice company here in town. And I prefer, it's not necessary, I prefer the Madagascar vanilla. That's just my preference. There are other vanillas available, but right now the vanilla market is on the expensive side. So just mix this together, get the pumpkin and the vanilla mixed in. You might want to use your spatula to get everything off the sides, like so. So once it's completely mixed, I'm going to splatter the camera here. So once that is completely mixed, all you need to do is fold in the flour mixture. This has the cinnamon, the cloves, the nutmeg. I grind my nutmeg each time I use it because it is one of the spices I like very much. And so I do that. Cloves, ginger, cinnamon, yeah. A little bit of salt is in there. And then you just fold the flour into the mixture, like so. And then I'll show you how to prepare the pan. So just down through the middle. When you're folding, be sure you cut down through the middle and turn the bowl. And as you do that, if you do that properly, it ends up cleaning the sides of the bowl as you go. So you don't have any problems with flour sticking to certain areas. Okay, now, all right, let me just put this aside over here. Maybe I should just rinse this off. Hold on one sec. get ready. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Have to do that. So the actual pan that you're going to use, and you'll get a recipe for this afterwards. It is a 10 by 15 old-fashioned jelly roll pan, because the jelly, nowadays you have a half sheet, which I'll be using later, and you'll see the difference. They're 11 by 17 or whatever. This is more what we used to have, and it just happens to be my old favorite pan. I use a piece of parchment, and I fold the edges just a bit in order to fit the pan and to have some leverage for lifting this cake out of the pan later on. So what I do is fold them down, and then let's see if I can let you see this. Once you have your folds, if you take, this is a little tip, just take your scissors and snip down through the middle of those folds, and it'll fit into the pan much better, okay? And so then I spray it with just a little bit of canola spray, and then we're going to add the mixture, cake mixture, like so, and spread it out as evenly as you can, like so, into the edges a bit. And the oven, like I said, at 375. And we'll only be baking this for 14-15 minutes, about like that. Into the corners a bit. Now, the edges, the final edges will be trimmed a little bit. So you don't have to worry that the very ends, the short end, is all that even, because that'll be trimmed away. Okay, like so. Last little bit. And I'm going to just toss these somewhere else. Over here. Okay, into the oven. Yes, you're going to all see that. Into the oven, and set the timer. And it's very, very quickly baked. Okay, so that is the story for the cake. Nothing to it. Hardly any ingredients and hardly any time to whip it up. So next we need to go ahead and do the filling. Now, when I said earlier that it's reminiscent of the carrot cake, this is one of the reasons, is because the frosting or the filling is cream cheese, butter, and powdered sugar, and a little bit of vanilla, which is almost exactly what you have for carrot cake frosting. So for the cream cheese, I use the original Philadelphia cream cheese that is pure fat, whole fat, whatever you want to call it, but not the low fat or non-fat. It tends to be more liquid, not quite as thick, okay? And then the vanilla again, and the powdered sugar, ready here. So just whip this up a little bit before, turn it on maybe. And you can use a spoon if everything is very, very soft. If the butter is soft and the cream cheese is soft, you can actually use a wooden spoon to mix this. But to be a little bit quicker, just go ahead and use your hand mixer and cream that together. And then I like to put my powdered sugar in through a sieve, only because moisture may have collected in your powdered sugar bag or jar, whatever you keep it in. And sometimes there'll be some little granules. And if you sift it as you put it in, it will take those little granules through into without making it hard to mix. Okay, so get those in, and a teaspoon of vanilla. Everything should have vanilla. In the holidays, it seems. Vanilla, cinnamon, all those spices are all we're going to be seeing from now on, it seems. Okay, and I'll put this back here. So mix this together slowly, slowly at first, Otherwise, you'll have a cloud of powdered sugar flying around the room and all over your face. Okay, here we go. So I'm just mixing this up now to be ready for the cake. And you'll see when the cake comes out how we roll it up. And once you have it rolled, it has to cool completely before you can fill it. Otherwise, you will melt the frosting and it won't stay put. Okay? It'll just melt away once it hits some heat. Okay, so here we go. Well mixed. And of course, you might just have to taste it at some point. For instance, with your baby finger. Make sure you had enough vanilla. If not, add some more vanilla. If you like more vanilla, add more vanilla. Okay, so set that aside until we're ready to use it. And I will go ahead and talk to you, and we'll come back to the cake once it's finished baking and show you how it all gets rolled up, etc. But in the meantime, you know, in my kitchen, I have to have a space to work, so I have to just keep cleaning up after myself. Okay, everybody knows the good cream cheese. So the second dessert that's really easy to do if you streamline it is a galette. That's the French word for, like, it looks like a big cookie. A galette can be a cookie. It can be a certain type of pie, one that's not fit into a pie dish, but one that's kind of free-formed. So the recipe you're going to be getting calls for you to make your own pie crust and to make the galette in a rectangular fashion. But you can follow that and works very well. But to streamline it for you today, we've decided to go ahead and use the pre-bought pie crusts, like so. This is something that will just save you a lot of time during the holiday, especially if you're doing a lot of other types of things like the turkey, the stuffing, everything else. So this is a pre-formed pie dough, 10-inch, about 10 inches. And you bring it to room temperature. There are 2 of these in a package. So you bring that to room temperature. Let me just grab all my things over here for this recipe. Okay. All right. So once this is at room temperature, it should be easy to unfold it onto a jelly roll pan. Now this is a half sheet, what we call a half sheet. And some of these half sheets do not fit in the ovens if you have a really old-fashioned oven. That's one reason we had those old 10 by 15 cookie sheets years ago that I still use. But this is a half sheet, and it does fit in my oven. And you just need to make sure you put this on something that fits into your oven. So then you want to just unroll this onto your cookie sheet. And I like to use the sides, because if this oozes out over the side, bubbles up and oozes out over the side, then it won't ruin your oven so much and make it smell and burn. Okay, that is the base. Again, if you want to make your own dough, you'll have the recipe for that as soon as Maya sends it out to you. So for the apples, for this 10-inch, you'll only need about 3 apples. For the bigger one in your recipe, you'll need more, about like 5 or 6 apples, depending on the size of the apple. And it just happens that I like Fuji, I like Honeycrisp. Of course, those are new ones on the market these days. In the old days, and in France, they tend to use more Golden Delicious for a lot of their apple desserts. But that's because that's mostly what they grow. So this is a Fuji apple, and we'll just peel it the old-fashioned way. If you have another way of peeling apples, just go ahead and do your way. I just have copied my grandmother, who used to say, if you break this, you're not going to have a long life. But I usually break it anyway, so I don't know how long I'll be living. And hopefully all through the holidays, even if I break my apple. Okay, so anyway, it's too long to make it stay put. So just keep peeling, or use a peeler if you have one that you like for peeling apples. But like I say, I'm used to using my knife. The knives are my best friends. Okay, so those are like that. And instead of trying to use an apple core, because the apples are not very straight always, this one looks fairly straight. If your core goes all the way through evenly, that's fine, but usually it doesn't. So I prefer to half the apple and just cut it in half, and then use a melon baller to take out the little ends, because I'm going to slice. I don't want wedges for this. Wedges for an apple pie, like my mother's apple pie, but for a galette, we want to cut it a different way. So I just use my melon baller to take the center out, okay, and the little end pieces where the stems are, and just pull the middle out, like so. Toss that. And then I slice the apples across, not long ways, crossways, okay? Just slice them like so. And if you think...
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for your patience. We're going to try to get everybody back up. So, Donna, can you hear me?
Are we back? We're back.
Okay, it looks like you're back. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, we're back. So I think you probably saw me chopping the apples into these slices crossways. And so now I'm just adding them to the crust this way. And I go all the way around and then continue overlapping again and again. And as we continue, I'll try to fill in some of the little spots too that are empty, so we get hopefully a nice tight collection of apples in circular form. They get a little bit slippery here, but keep after them. They'll find their place, and keep going around until you get back where you started. And once we're back where we started, we'll start tweaking a bit. Get some of these, and I'll show you this up a little bit closer in a minute. So we get some of these underneath where you see little spots that are open. Just tuck in a piece of apple, like so. Now the recipe you're going to get after the class will tell you to bake this for about 70 minutes, but that's a huge rectangular type of tart galette. And so this one, I know only needs to bake about 45 minutes at 400. Okay, so okay, now we didn't use quite all 3 apples, but just tuck in what you can, make it look like it comes to a swirl in the middle, makes it attractive in the end. And then you just take your fingers and pull up the side and sort of flute it as you go, like so, over the apples. Just keep turning it around. Pinch it just a little bit. It's easier than trying to flute the edge of a regular apple pie that's in a deep pan. And just pull this up. Push the apples in if you need to get a little room. They'll move around, but you can move them around later too. So just pull it in, up and over just a bit. And we'll make sure our arrangement is still looking good once we do that. Just rearrange until you get a little swirl right in the middle here. So almost like you might be making a rose of some sort. Yeah, you know, look over here. Maybe there's a little spot. You can put in an extra piece or so that there's more apple to cover everything. Because as the apples cook, they're going to soften, and then they will basically shrink. Okay, so here we are. We want to dot this with some butter, with some little chunks of butter, like so, all around. That's going to give the apples some flavor. Now you could, if you wanted, you could go ahead and put some cinnamon and other spices. I know since it's the holidays, maybe you want to do a little cinnamon, because cinnamon is in everything these days, or any other spice that you particularly like. And then you need a little bit of sugar, granulated sugar, to sprinkle over. That's going to help, along with the butter, to make some juices, since there's no custard or anything to kind of make a thickened juice. It's a very simple galette. It doesn't require any kind of cornstarch or thickening agent. You're just going to have very little underneath the apples. It'll be pure apples and pure crust. And just, that's how that goes. And then that's going to go into a 400-degree oven. This one about 45 minutes. Okay? And we'll just set the timer and get back to our cake. The cake. Okay, here we are. Back to the pumpkin roll. It just came out of the oven while we had our little time away from you. And see, now that you have these little corners loose, you can pull this out and you're finished with the pan. And what you want to do now is on the short end, the very short end, start rolling this up while it's warm. Roll it up like so. Okay? And then you have the seam side down. At this point, you need to let it just completely cool. So set it aside somewhere on a rack is helpful, and just set it aside so that it completely cools. Okay? And then, voila, I have one already made, like so. This was the one I made ahead to show you so that we didn't have to wait for it to cool. And when I do this, if I'm in a hurry, I will pop that warm roll in the fridge or in the freezer, which doesn't help your freezer. It doesn't like to change temperature like that, but it doesn't take very long then to just chill it if you're in a real hurry. So now that we have this still rolled up in the paper, we want to unroll it. Just keep unrolling it like so, paper and all. Okay, just unroll it. It'll be easy to get off once it's cool. And then you take your frosting, your cream cheese mixture, and spread it everywhere. This out. Nobody can lick this since we're on Zoom. Sorry about that. But if you have kids, I'm sure, or anybody around who likes to lick the beaters, have at it. And all of this gets spread evenly as possible up to the edges, as close to the edges as you can get it. Just unroll that last little bit here and out to all edges. And as I said, the edges this way are going to be trimmed later on. Those are, again, probably the part that the cook gets to eat while she's doing this, the little samples. And then once you have this fairly even, a bit more over here, some in the middle, and start again at that short end that's pretty curled for you at this point. So make sure you get as much of the frosting as you can, and then roll it up. Now you can roll it up like so without the paper. And once you get to that little end there where we have some frosting oozing out, you put it back in the end. Good idea for it. Then the next step, which I haven't done for you, but you should do, is take this and put it into plastic wrap, and tighten it so that you put it in the refrigerator to chill. And it tightens it up into a nice even roll, okay? But what I'm gonna do is go ahead and use it as if it has been tightened up for you, okay? So we'll just pretend that it's done, but you wanna maybe chill this for, maybe an hour. And then that's when you wanna come along and slice the ends. It won't show as well right now because it's still a little too soft. But you can see, you just trim these edges. So, and if you want to get it onto a pretty plate of some sort with no cream cheese on it, then just roll it or pick it up. It depends on how secure you feel about it. Pick it up, get it right onto your plate, and then dust it with powdered sugar. And where's my little duster? Here. Okay. So then you can just dust it with a little powdered sugar. Pretend it's snow, I guess. I'm sure that's something we're not going to see very much of this year, probably, unless we get started soon. And when you're ready to serve it, I'll let it sit for just a minute and let it meld together. But when we're ready to serve it, we'll cut a slice and put it on our plate for service. And then let's pretend that the apple has had its 40-some minutes, 45 minutes in the oven. And we're going to bring it out. And this is how it would look. Now, this is not quite finished because I have to shine it up. And in all things French, they use mostly apricot jam, strained apricot jam, for shining their tarts. And even if it's a strawberry tart, you know, they just take a little bit of strained apricot jam because it has less color than anything else. And then they just shine the edges with this, and over the apples a little bit, gives it just a little shine. And I just happen to have some sort of, what would you call it? Not pearl sugar, but I have some coarse granulated sugar that's good for finishing something like this, just to give it a certain little extra crunch. And that's here. They use that on a lot of Danish pastries to put a little crunch on the top. Oh, I had it open for you earlier. Now it's not opening for me. Okay, let's just snip it on the end. So it's a little bit shiny and a little bit more granule than your regular sugar, and you just sprinkle that on. So it gives it a little visual shine along with the apricot. Okay. So those are our two desserts. If you want to add something to this, let's see what we can do about giving you a little bit of a garnish. Let's say this is still kind of a little early to cut, but let's go ahead and show you exactly how it would look once it's just kind of squeezed and refrigerated for about an hour to set the frosting a bit. And that's exactly what we would look for. And for this one, you probably just want to cut in a wedge, like so. And then you garnish. Okay, let's set it up like this. And you can garnish these with ice cream, creme fraiche, whatever you prefer. In the French tradition, you would use creme fraiche. And in our American version, you would most likely use vanilla ice cream. So, and then when you get it finally plated onto your lovely plates, then you're going to have to give some kind of garnish to make it look a little bit more festive here. Just happen to have some nasturtium that we can put on here just to garnish it a bit. Come on, don't stick to me. And then, or a little bit of mint leaves, or holly. If you can find some holly leaves to garnish your plates this season, that would be really nice. I have done garnishing with marzipan holly leaves, but generally they're a little bit more complicated. Not everybody wants to play around with the marzipan. So here you are, one quick little galette. Takes 45 minutes to bake, but it's really easy to do. And your pumpkin roll, as you see, once you put it on a buffet table, everybody could take a slice. Of course, maybe they want to take the whole thing. You could slice it at an angle. You can slice it straight on, and you have a nice presentation. So, and I suppose that now if anybody has questions, is anybody going to be having questions today? I can answer some of those. Anybody? That's my. You have any?
So Donna, I did have a question that came in. So thank you for sharing all of those recipes. They look delicious. On the pumpkin roll, can you add something to the cream cheese mixture?
I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you clearly. What's the question?
So Donna, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are making the pumpkin roll, can you add other ingredients to the filling?
Can you add other ingredients to the filling?
Yes. Okay. Other ingredients. So, like I said earlier, it tastes very much like carrot cake, mostly because of the spices, but it doesn't have the texture. But if you are cutting the pumpkin roll, you have to be careful if you add any ingredients to it because it will slice smoothly. But if you could do mini chocolate chips, I would put that in the filling because one of the things I really think is a delicious combination is pumpkin and chocolate. I adore pumpkin ice cream cones that are dipped in that chocolate that hardens on top. And so, or you could use a sauce, like even a chocolate sauce with it. But if you wanted to put something in the cake, I'd be a little bit careful about that because it's going to interfere with being able to slice it very smoothly.
I agree. I think chocolate seems like the best complement, especially to the pumpkin, and the cream cheese. So I think it sounds delicious to me. And should you use a serrated knife when you're cutting those?
Did you use a serrated knife?
No, I used my straight bladed knife.
Okay.
When it's cold, a serrated knife might work just fine, but a straight bladed knife should cut right through it. One of the other things about the apple pie too, some people like raisins in their apple pies or currants, and you could add that to the apple pie too. But again, I wouldn't put too many because it would interfere with the kind of form that you have with your apples that really turns out to be a nice presentation. So,
great.
Yeah.
So thank you, Donna. This was wonderful. I appreciate you sharing everything, and we will we will see you for our next Whip It Up Cooking Club sometime next year. So this has been great, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.